So. Looks like I got all the details in March, right? I did.
Hold on 1 second, I can't find where the.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the White Lake Township Library to order on Wednesday, April 22nd at 6:46 p.m. Right? And first thing we do is say our pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okey-doke. And it's roll call. Carrie?
President Jennifer Schultz,
Present.
Vice President Eric Schultz,
Present.
Treasurer Gwendolyn Newton,
Present.
Secretary Gary Francis, present. Trustee Becky Mann,
Second.
and Trustee William Lyons.
Present.
Director Baker Stevenson and Assistant Director Amy Rosen are also in attendance.
Okay. Does someone want to approve and second the agenda?
Yeah, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5 yes votes. Are you public or are you just here?
No, she's
She's got a presentation.
Presenting? I didn't think that made her public, even though she's sitting. Okay, Emily, we're looking for your
agenda?
presentation. Oh, there's no public for the record.
Yeah. Alrighty, I wanted to present to you guys the quote-unquote master plan for the potential reinvigoration, reorganizing, restructuring of the youth department. The paper that I passed out is my outline of it. It might seem like a lot of gobbledygook, but that's how my brain works. So phase 1 of my proposed plan is the shelving in the youth department. I would like to reorganize the entire department by rotating and shifting the current shelving units. The proposed layout that I am proposing will increase our sightlines to the toy area as well as create a more open flow in the room. We estimate, based off of my 2-scale version that I built that I will show you, gaining a 20-foot open space down the middle of the youth department. And in addition to that, structure. The design and install of the steam and storytime storage along the blank wall is part of my phase 1 idea. Will this open the way out? Because I am a crazy person, I built a 2-scale 3D rendering of what the new shelves would look like. When I move things around. There we go. So this is what it would look like. This is not what it currently looks like with the entrance to the youth department over here. We would be moving the picture books from this back corner up to the front, nonfiction shifting over, and our fiction shelves rotating along the back, which would then I spent a lot of time. The view from the youth services desk, from where the staff sit, would be this direct angle towards our toy area, which is here. Of course, the shelving is see-through. This is all solid because it wouldn't let me do that, but we would still be able to see through the shelving. No more tables would be in the back corner here. They would all be up at the front. The couches and chairs would come up through this middle, and that would be the 20-foot space between fiction and nonfiction there.
I'm glad you got rid of the back corner.
Yep. It's hard to see everything. All the tables now are going to be closer to the front. The 3 that are currently there, and then the other 2 will move forward, so we will be able to see it. We'll be able to see the toys. We'll be able to see out into the corner, and then every shelf to the right of our desk facing the patio will be shorter ones. We'll lose those 2 taller ones, which do impact our sightlines out to the patio
nice.
as well. Yes.
So you'll be able to see out to the patio.
Yep. So everything to the right is all short shelves. The only tall ones are going to be these 3 long and 2 shorter ones that are in that corner with nothing behind it on the window. But again, we will be able to still see through the shelves because they're not fully full, so if it is being nefarious corner, I can still spot them.
So is the furniture staying around the road?
Yeah, right now we only have one couch and one chair back there, but I wanna move the couch that's over by the patio back there, as well as that other chair,
Okay.
and create more of like a family space down.
That was.
And we also talked about buying one of those like mirrors that they have in parking structures to put up in this corner, just in case. So I can spot children down the hall, but parents will have good sight lines from it. Hopefully. It'll be better, we get more space and more sight lines.
The mirror is a good idea. Yeah.
That was a little bit of April's brainchild that I ran with. Next is design. I would like to remove our 3 bulletin boards that are out in the youth department, the 2 that are on the patio wall and the big one along the middle grade section. That one is our books before like wall of fame. I'll move that to the TV slides and we'll just do a digital track of like who moves where. But removing those when the building gets painted this summer would allow us to like repair any holes and get everything fixed with the intention of putting murals up in the youth department.
So for the reading, all of that, it'll be digitized.
I'll move it to a slide on the TV, and so every so often it'll show whoever's read the last month, and we'll just keep
Okay.
track of that.
Okay.
So they're still there, recognize. Murals, which I'm most excited about. I want to do murals with like I Spy elements hidden, which a lot of other libraries have started to do as well, with a tie-in with our mascots. So there's a couple muralists that I've been looking at. They all are semi-local. Austin has done a lot of work in commerce and wildlife schools and breweries and stuff, and his style is very. I actually have he does a lot of different styles, a lot of nature stuff, and a lot of like cool stuff, and he can pretty much do anything from what I've seen. He's like coolest one in my opinion. Another one is Rhiannon. She did the mural at Commerce Library that they got done like a year or 2 ago. Very cute, bright, and like stylized art style that she does, but she does a lot of libraries and has a lot of experience with it. And then
Cute.
Love that.
Yeah.
I'm looking there.
I like it.
Oh.
Oh,
Another one that we looked at, same thing, she does like a lot of varying styles and has done a lot of work in like libraries and public spaces.
okay. They all look good.
Once we get to a mural, we'll do the whole shebang, but those are my top 3. The proposed mural spaces are the patio wall once we remove those 2 bulletin boards, potentially the wall above where the toys are now, where that horse painting is, the wall where that big bulletin board for the 1,000 books is above middle grade, and then potentially, depending on money and what we can do, the wall as you're exiting the youth department with the door and the little house, that wall as well. But the big one by the patio door is my main big focus.
The one by the patio door.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is this one here. I did a little like erasing of the wall to put some art in there.
You can put, y'all come back. And see it, you know, is that too generational?
It might be.
We'll have to go watch Sesame Street and see what's cool.
Mascots in there, get some like I Spy features hidden, which will help with like the scavenger hunt we do all the time. If we pick different things for them to search for.
Okay.
Good question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would the illustrator that you're using for creatures work with the muralist?
She probably will. Yes.
Want to get her specific
Yes.
drawings out there?
Yes. Yeah, it would either be like, here's the art we have, pop it into it, or I can ask her if I don't know how big of a scale she does, but she is an illustrator, so she's done books. She do the wall. History sort of ish is big ideas, things that will not happen this year for sure, but would love to happen. The 3 pillars that we have in the room, the foundational ones, I would like to turn those into trees. Maybe paint them green when we're doing the repainting this summer as just like a transitional, but eventually tree stuff. We want to bring in some more flexible seating, which I have some examples of towards the end. All the beanbags we have died because kids jump on them, so I need a little bit more of a sturdy but flexible seating. I'd like to create a reading nook by that youth entrance room where the bathroom is. Right now, there's just a couch there.
Mhm.
But if we pull that couch out over to the toy area, we'll have a whole bunch of space there. And it's like quiet but still visible enough for us to keep an eye on things. A nice quieter spot. And interactive things, we've looked at light bright walls, wall-mounted activity panels. This morning I was looking at those like interactive floor projectors that you can play on, which is really cool.
Stop spiders.
Yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Blue Water has done like a really cool interactive book in another library, so we could also work with them and come up with some new ideas. And I'm also looking at like sound panels that would play like forest noises or like cute little stuff to play with. And then dynamic shelving, which I have some examples of as well. And then additional thoughts. I would like to buy a new rug for the toy area because ours is a little old, but we could be on theme and I have some examples of those. With the new open space, adding a charging area into that back section for the grown ups. There is a 4-plug right where I'm looking at, and we could add like a little station and everything. Possible ceiling hanging things. This is not Royalo. This is Redford's new library. They redid theirs, and they have like butterflies and bees hanging from the ceiling, and they're very cool. Like birds or butterflies, clouds, leaves, woods is what we're going for. And then potentially like floor decals and paw prints leading around the room.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I'm thinking birds, because we have the tree, we have our tree out here, it's got birds and, yeah, it's nice.
Some rugs I'm looking at all time the vibe. Like pond is really cool, the leaves are really cool. This is some dynamic scenes, like the tree ones are actual stools and they're from a library company, so they're built to live a long time. The fox stool is from Demco, which is actually no, it's from TMC, which is another library company built to live, and it'll match Fable. So those would be a cute one
That's
to replace the like benches at the learning computers. Made up a little box scale cute. Wall mounted panel here. This is one of those light bright walls. This one is like a little puck lights that you actually turn, and as you turn them, they cycle through the colors. And when no one's playing with it, it'll like run colors. It'll reset itself when you stop playing with it. So if they like something inappropriate, it'll erase itself.
How do you keep that clean? I'm just
It
asking.
says they're built for like a lot of
Filter?
filters, so I would
Yeah.
assume they should be good clean. Redford has one as
Okay.
well. So I gotta, theirs is giant.
Okay,
So
I'm just thinking. Little hands.
they're pretty, the one at Redford I played with is pretty sturdy, so I would assume it can handle some Clorox
Okay.
and stuff. Dynamic shelving, like I mentioned, this is just one example of like a little tree sprout leaf shelf that would be cute. We could use it for recommended reads from our mascots or really anything.
And who's,
Little house.
and who makes that one?
This one is Demco.
Okay,
I've got everything written down somewhere.
okay,
All of them are from, everything that I've looked at is all from companies that work
okay.
for libraries. Nothing is really like out of, like crazy weird.
Can I ask, this is out of order, but I'll forget if I don't. I was, had a meeting at those sofas in the back, and I was surprised how much wear they were showing already. Not already being 5 years, but I thought that they were supposed to be durable industrial, and they're not. I mean, you can see the wear on the seats. Are you looking to redo anything that we have, reupholster anything that we already have, or are you looking to
That's a
replace?
great question. Happy to look into it.
Okay. I just noticed that there was wear on them.
They are loved.
Yeah.
There's some other like another
But
little.
right now, that's not part of the plan.
Yeah.
The part of the plan is to reuse what we have.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure the furniture will need to be reevaluated at some point coming up soon. Just it's only been 5 years, but it's been 5 years. There's more examples of like little reading nooks and some murals and some cool stuff. And then just for a top view, this is what the youth department currently looks like, just so you can see a comparison between the two. This is what it currently looks like, and this would be the top view of the new one. Again, with
Yeah.
that big open space down the
Feels
middle.
more open, yeah.
Yeah,
The
nice.
same exact number of shelves too, they're just turned, and it creates so much more space. I measured everything out to scale. I've measured out like ADA clearance. Everything should be good to go. It should be something that we can do as a staff ourselves without having to hire an outside company. It might take us a couple Sundays, but we can do it ourselves.
Looks good, Emily. Sure does.
That's all I got.
I think it's. Smart. Yes, good vision.
So
Yes.
April, is the funding for, is the thought the funding for this would come out of the grant from the lady? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Are they doing anything to tie the teens into the mascots or no?
We do have folklore is the teen mascot.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's not much I can do in the teen room because it is so small.
Tiny, yeah.
That is my next app. I figured after we got this big tackling of shelving moved, I could measure out the teen room. Not much we can do because it's already really tight and at 88. So I'm not sure how much I can do to fix it. But you want.
Mhm.
The friends this morning were like, we can buy you new shelving units. And I'm like, cooler ones, cool. So we'll see. I figured this might be a very good undertaking
Yes.
to get done. And then we'll see what I can manage in the teen room. Might be able to pull out one of the tables that's in there. 'Cause they don't often all four get used at once and create a little bit more space in there. But yes, that's next. That'll be when I join the board meeting. Like, cool.
Well, I like the murals idea and the
Yeah.
trees
Yeah.
and having it just feel more interactive. It's,
Yeah.
I mean, our room is great, but I think that it you know, balance was improved.
Some warm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it feel really like.
Yeah.
Cool. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Good job, Emily.
All right,
Thank you.
all right,
Our girls.
all right. Then back to the agenda. I need someone who will approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, 5. You're, yeah. Yes, votes. Okay. Officers reports. I really don't have anything this month. Oh, other than, this is exciting news for me personally. My daughter was selected out of like 3 Marines in the whole Marines to become an instructor for their MMA program.
Fabulous.
So she's going to Louisiana for 3 weeks and doing that. So that's my news. It's not library related, but I mean, okay, go for your dreams, kids,
And so,
because
Emily,
she was a ballerina and now she's a Marine who's teaching martial arts. So you can do anything.
I don't have much of a report other than to say congratulations to April and the staff for a wonderful volunteer breakfast that you put on.
That was
It
great.
was very well attended.
That was David Amy's, right?
Yeah.
Yes, like shout out to David Amy's. They did a great job. And you said the price was great too. So
And
yes.
and it was very, very nice, and you did a beautiful job. You're a great hostess.
Yeah.
And you emceed well, and it was really, really pleasant, and the people that were there seemed very.
They stayed, they didn't like out the door when
Right.
it was when they were done eating. They stayed and talked. So that was nice to see. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's it for me.
I have nothing to report.
Treasurer, one
Okay.
to you.
I'm hoping everybody looked at the packet.
Yep.
And if they did, the first thing I'm gonna do is, make a motion to approve the February bills as presented.
I'll second that.
I was just thinking, is it March or February? I always get this
March.
confused.
Because we're April,
We're in April.
so I'm asking for the March ones to be paid as presented, which are technically already paid.
Okay, but you said February, which is why I was confused.
Oh,
no.
Was I the only person who heard February?
I
Okay.
apologize. I will say that again.
That's why I was
I'm
staring
making-
at you.
You know what? Because I'm looking at the minutes from last month,
Uh-huh.
and I make a motion to approve the bills as presented from March 2026.
Okay, and
so sorry.
Williams our second.
And I
I
apologize.
did.
That's okay.
And then I have one other item of business.
We need to vote first, right?
Oh, yes,
yeah.
we need to vote.
All
I'm
in
sorry.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5 yes votes. Okay.
Okay, so the other piece of business that we have a CD coming due in June at Genesis. And I'm going to make a motion to roll over the entire amount of the Genesis CD maturing on 6/24 up to 13 months, depending upon the interest rates at the time.
A second?
That was a complete rollover,
Complete
up to
roll.
16 months, okay.
13.
Up to 13 months. We don't go
Okay.
beyond
I
13
did not
months.
hear that.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Fine.
All right, another 5 yes votes.
And that's my report for you.
Okay,
Because we can talk about Catherine Van Hoy and the finance.
We can talk about, it's in the finance committee, but it's
it's
also.
also on
for
the
business.
agenda.
Yes.
Yeah,
So that's my report.
okay. April, we're moving on to director's report.
Wow, okay, here we go. Thank you, yeah, we truly enjoy doing the volunteer appreciation. Here, it's just fun and it's great to see everyone. Thank you. We had our annual property insurance review meeting. They just come out every year to go over what's our insurance covers and give us our new stuff. And so thank you for board members that breakfast. We registered 60 new library cards for Dublin Elementary kindergartners and pre-kindergartners. They attended, we hosted them here. We had about 70, so some of them have their own cards already, but 70 rolling dervishes.
So can I ask about that? How do we give preschoolers a card?
Well, it depends on where they're at in the 4 to 5 range. So like they're getting close to the end and if they're turning 5, it's not preschoolers, it's junior kindergarten.
Okay.
And kindergarten, yeah. So they're getting.
So what's our criteria for someone to get a card?
5-ish and sign their name.
Okay. I just wondered if it changed, because I thought it was 5-ish, if they could sign their name and their parent was there.
Yeah, we give them the applications for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then they come.
Okay, thank you, because I'm like, I just thinking, where's the parent involved in this? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification.
So, let's see, what else? Okay, the small dates, the salt checks, those are, our 2 of our salt checks are getting close to end of life this fall. So the meeting with Envision, we're going to talk about what that's gonna look like. What will be the next steps. Communications marketing.
Are they the same? Are they gonna look the same, or have they upgraded their?
The hardware, from what I understand on the X11s, the hardware is going to be end of life in September. And literally what they're telling me now, this is a salesperson, is that they may not even have the equipment after then.
So if all of our Envisionware is end of life at.
Not all, just the 2. Though actually the children's kiosk is not until 2020. That one's gonna be still good for a while.
But they all look alike, right?
Yeah, but for some reason the hardware that kiosk one is lasting longer. So
So are
we're gonna look
we,
at some options. We're gonna look again at Envisionware, which is what we would prefer to stay with. We'll take a look at Bibliotech. Maybe I really don't want to look at TechLogical. See what's out there.
so is that in our budget to replace those this year, or
It
is
will
it?
be for January.
Okay.
All right, so like I said, communications marketing, good. Director connections, thing, whole board meetings, window tinting has started. You can see here, there's a few windows they have to redo here, and they still have to come out. They're coming out tomorrow and Friday to finish off the rest of the project. So this one though, I'm light sensitive, and when I first came in here after they did it, I had no problem standing there. So it was.
So which ones have been done?
All of them have been done. You're still going to see bubbles until, it could take about a month for all bubbles to come out of them, but there are some in here that they have to redo. Because they got like a little corner I'm not too happy with. And there's a couple little jagged edges. There's about 6 that I want to replace. I already talked to them about it. So they're gonna take care of
Okay,
that.
I'm just, cause he's. So what, I'm assuming it went on the inside. It just looks like.
It does go on the inside.
Those windows look great, because these windows look dirty.
Yeah, dusty, that's the outside, not the inside. Okay. So,
They literally washed, clean the window, then they put the
right.
solution
So
up and then they.
any haze you're seeing is from the outside.
Okay.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's just the sun, but it looks like the tops, that's done on their door, they did the top. Cause you can definitely see the tin on top.
Yeah, I like sensitivity, but again, there's a few that I think we would see.
It'd just be the
redone.
contrasting color behind.
That's still going on. The library design installed the extra shelving outside of the Idea Lab, so if you haven't had a chance to see that, I suggest you take a look at that. It's moving along.
And that's where the cake. What else is gonna be in there besides the
It's
cake
gonna be
pan?
seasonal. So we've got seasonal cake pans now. We've got seasonal like things having to do with the seed library, so gardening
Okay.
tools, things like that. The Friends hosted their successful creature feature program last Saturday, 46 kids, 54 adults. And they gave away animal keychains made from our 3D printer to promote the ITO house.
And they were very cute.
We're very good. It went very well. Great program. What else? So like I said, we had those 70+ junior and kindergarten students from Dublin. Staff attended the Public Library Association conference in Minneapolis and learned many great new things, sharing what they've learned. We added new items to the Idea Lab, a metal detector, and a few thousands. So we'll see how those go. I'm very interested in the metal detectors, frankly. We had around 120 interactions with our March is Reading Month Madness, so that I thought that was a very cute program that they did. Our landscapers started spring cleanup and mulch installation completed. We've got some anniversaries, all of them 3 years. Faith, Mary Lou, and Nancy. So we're so happy to have that on our team. And just some public updates on the technology wise, printer issue for Emily. And yeah, so that's for that. Stats were up again. Circulation was up. New card registration was up.
Yes.
Door count was up. Public computer usage was up. Wi-Fi.
Looks like overdrive's a record, right?
Overdrive is the highest usage in over 4 years.
Yes. So, but circulation, it was up from last month, but if you look, and if you're looking at the statistics on this, for some reason, the first 3 months of 2024 and 2025, those numbers are all higher than what we did in 2026 for the first quarter. And I'm like, why?
It's an icier, wintry winter, I think, too.
You think? Because I'm like, what's the difference here? Because you could see that we did this climb from 2022 to 2024, that quarter. 2025 was down a little bit, but we're considerably down from 2025 to 2026 for the first quarter, pretty much across the board. So I thought, well, I shouldn't say that. Door count's about even.
We haven't changed how we count anything, have we, our methodology.
Okay, and that's what I was like, and so like new registration cards was down. I was just looking quarter to quarter for year over year.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with Becky. I think it was very cold.
I think I like that too, so.
The door count was the same.
But yeah, the door.
Right, the door count was the same. That's what I'm like. Why is circulation so much more down than the door count?
They spent more time here.
They spent more time.
Maybe they just spent more time, they read instead of checking.
And they didn't want to bother bringing something back, so they didn't check anything out.
I just thought it was interesting.
Either way, it's a haunted building.
Mhm.
So yeah, so overdrive is highest in 4 years, going down, lowest since 2020. It's interesting.
And we have hoopla till the end of the year. Or are we gonna continue?
We have hoopla until we say we don't have hoopla. I'm
Okay.
trying to stretch it out as long as we can,
Okay.
as long as it's useful, but I'm not, it's not Research keeps going down, not seeing it, and I think the money could be better used.
Okay.
I don't like to do abrupt.
Well, it's still being used, that's pretty obvious.
So that's. See what makes it work. Okay. Otherwise than that, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm passing around our new newsletter from this quarter. This was our first edition with our new illustrator. Illustrator, was that what I'd call her? I don't know. Designer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Graphic artist.
Graphic artist.
And-
Whatever she wants to go by.
And
Here
thanks
it
to
is.
Jen and Emily for working on this. To make these changes. So-
Yeah, and so as I'm sending it around, just comment if you have a issue with readability, like I don't understand what this means, or it's hard to see, just make a little note and put your initials so we
What sort of,
follow up.
during the meeting, be able to take?
Well, it's going around during the meeting. If you want to stay afterwards, feel free. So, but here it is. That's how I got it given to me, and it's next in line. And if you have any other general comments, just write them on here. Okay, and there you go. All right. Moving on to committee reports. William, do you want to do the
Sure, I can do that.
building committee?
All right, we met Monday, April 13th. Thanks again for the early time. So just updates, the January leak, the insurance company's not reimbursing us for the actual burst of the pipe, but I believe they covered everything else. And I think, are we still waiting on that cover?
So we're going to get a letter state, I guess.
No, okay, but I meant the actual, we were waiting from somebody to put the new installation.
Everything's done.
It's all done, okay. We discussed the parking lot seal coating and scheduled for Sunday, May 3rd. Window tinting obviously was scheduled last week, and we're almost done. Generator quotes kind of on hold right now until we get some feedback from an electrical engineer as to what specs we should really spec out. Thanks for Hutchinson Electric to give us that idea, because we'll never get an apples for apples quote.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the painting.
And so do you have a, engineer that's gonna come in?
We're gonna use the engineer you contact, right?
We're going to see. Actually did it to see if we can work with them again.
Okay,
And so that was 2 weeks ago, we had this meeting, right? We could. So we're just not there yet, right? You haven't contacted them. So anyway, we put the other quotes on hold for right now. And then painting, we got 3 prices, we discussed some of that, and we're gonna look at getting one more quote on who's painting next door from them,
okay,
just
yep, yeah.
2 were relatively close, and one was like $20,000 more, so. Get another, maybe hopefully relative one. The carpet and furniture plating still being put off until we can figure out the whole paint project. We discussed the youth information desk wall, shelving, hanging system. We got 3 vendor options, and since C2EAE was originally worked with, we're gonna start with seeing theirs. In light that we have additional funds that might help us with the redesign and the phases. And then we discussed the portico, and we're again gonna go to C2AE and see if they'll just give us a price without charging us to get a price.
I would hope so.
Nah, we hope so too. So that kind of wrapped that up. Our next meeting is May 11th at 3 p.m. via Zoom. Oh, by the way, we met here. I'm sorry.
And,
We met here.
A citizen
Monday
bid.
here. That was nice to. Here.
Second.
okay,
Well, that's it.
so the portico, when do you think that person's gonna? We're gonna hear about, them being willing to do a quote or tell us that we need to pay them for a quote.
We gotta reach out, we'll figure out. See what he's saying.
Yeah, we will definitely have to, once we get something on that, and we get something from the engineer, electrical engineer on the generator. And
Okay.
then we would probably try to prioritize, obviously, my priority would be the generator.
Generator.
Yeah,
But, obviously cost is gonna be the issue, so.
right,
in the
right,
budget.
but yeah, but the generator
Well,
is really important.
It's definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so that was it, thank you.
Okay. Becky, are you doing finance?
Yes, ma'am. Finance Committee met Wednesday, April 14th at 4 p.m. We discussed the inherited IRA. The Finance Committee is recommending that we cash it out and deposit it into a Flagstar account. And we are recommending that we allocate that amount towards the youth department, where Catherine Van Hoy was very passionate about. The 2025 audit, the library administration has provided all requested material. The accountant has also provided the material, and we are waiting for an in-person visit from the auditor.
We have a day on that yet?
The 2026 budget was reviewed and is on target, and we received the final property tax payment. We are still working on the 6-month basic budget, so we don't have any updates for that at this time. We reviewed the CD updates. The millage updates, carrying April went to the clerk's office, signed the resolution and sent it in. We received confirmation that the county has received it and is showing as one of the millages for the honest ballot. The naming rights policy, the Finance Committee adjusted the amounts on the addendum. Both Finance Committee and the Policy Committee are recommending the policy for review. Both Finance and Policy Committees have also reviewed the credit card policy, employee credit card use policy, and recommended for review by the library board. Our next meeting is Wednesday, May 13th, by Zoom.
Okay. And then, strategic planning didn't meet. So we're not actively doing anything, are we?
Well, yeah, I do have some stuff to talk about.
And April has some things to tell everybody.
Do you want to hit
Are we
comments?
doing
Yeah, let's
policy
hit policy.
first?
Yeah, let's hit policy first.
I totally missed it, sorry.
So the policy committee met on Tuesday, April 7th at 5 p.m. We discussed a number of things. There's the naming rights policy, which we're still waiting on the finance committee to finalize the room amounts on the addendum. There's also 2 that are for review tonight, which are the employee use of social media policy and the public social media policy. We'll cover those during the new business section. And then as far as the information security policy, we have not yet received this policy from the attorney, so we're still waiting on that. And we intend to keep going on the list of the potential library policies from the attorney.
They seem to be never ending.
Yes, yeah, we'll get through them eventually. Our next meeting is currently scheduled for Tuesday, May 5th, but I will have a conflict at that date, so we'll have to figure a different date after that to make that work. And that's it for the policy committee.
I'd like to ask a question in policy committee.
Sure.
So maybe this last line in here will answer it, but so how do you guys, what directs you and what you're gonna work
Well, some of what was corrected is if we started really with policies that we knew were outdated. Then we also had some policies that we didn't not have, and we needed to do those to receive some grant money and apply for some grants.
on? Okay,
So that, we have a lot of policies, but we also realized as we had some staff that was looking at doing some grants, we were missing some policies, which really generated that thought that, okay, what policies are we missing? Which our attorneys have this long list of policies that there's some that are mandatory, some that aren't mandatory. So what we've chosen to do is go through all the mandatory ones first to make sure that either ours were updated or we created the ones that were mandatory.
so you're looking at compliance stuff,
Absolutely, absolutely. So
what's
and that-
needed to move forward with other.
correct, like now, like the social media one, I don't think it's mandatory, but it's one that needs to happen. The employee credit card one, not every library has credit cards, so I don't know if that one's mandatory or not, but there were some that were very specific last year when we were doing, or maybe the year before when we were doing some grants.
We're not taking direction from an attorney on what to work on, you just running it through the attorney after the fact, right?
Actually, what we do is the attorney has boilerplates on all of these. And then because we started a long time ago, we started doing it on our own, and then we take it to the attorney, and the attorney says, you can't say that, you can't say that. So we realized that that probably wasn't the best way to do it. So then each time we decide that we're gonna go to work on another policy, April will bring it to the policy committee. She says, hey, I think we need to work on this next. And she might give us, or we'll look at this list and say, this is what we're gonna work on in the next 6 months to a year. And then she'll take those back to the attorney, and the attorney gives us the boilerplates.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think I'd add to that, if there's any that have dependencies on other things, we try to put those after the things that we've solved, so we get the dependency solved first. And then solve for what comes next after that, so like the employee social use of social media and the social media policy for the public. Sort of tied together, they're not only numerically in
Right.
order, but one sort of had to be there before the second one could be there.
I saw that, and then when we did the patron behavioral or whatever stuff, that was more of a, because something happened.
Right.
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
so it's kind of like three different
I
lessons.
think we're already working on it.
Oh, shit, time out, all
Yeah.
right.
And it just was time, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
And that's all for the policy.
Okay. April, now you can talk about the strategic plan.
One thing is we're doing this kind of right word issues. So this one is just our normal monthly top showing and it shows you as normal the updates of what we're working on or the tactics that are listed for this year. So we'll see something for that. But the other thing I really need you to pay attention to, and the strategic planning committee had asked me to bring to this a look at what we're working on as far as extending. So you'll see this in red, extended, White Lake Township Library Strategic Plan 2027 forward. So a few of the things that we had talked about in our committee was just a few word changes you'll see here, like under goal 1, strategy 1, tactic 4, expand adult programs. We're going to say adult programming. Strategy number 2, instead of utilize, we would say pursue. So we've just been kind of making a few changes there. Instead of increase, it would be adjust staff hours. Instead of resources and services, financial foundation, we would just say broaden the library's strong financial foundation. I think that's a little bit more factual. We have a strong financial foundation, and so we're just going to be broadening that. And then it continues.
Okay, I'm sorry, which word? Oh, I see, goal 3.
For 3. I know I'm moving a little fast. So just, you'll see some things in red here. What I really ask.
But what do we mean by broaden?
That's to be looked at.
Well,
It has to be looked at. We're not telling you that it has to be the wording. These were just some suggestions that the committee kind of came up with.
Okay.
So you'll see some more on there. The questions I want to ask you on this, and the committee is asking you to consider, as we can take this back to the committee in June. You know, how many years do you want to extend this? Are you looking at 1, 3, 5 years? How many years? This in and of itself is it's at its core, this strategic plan is good. So when we were talking about a committee, there wasn't a whole lot that we felt needed to be changed, just tweaked. And please step in if you guys can think of anything else. We do want to do some community input this fall, maybe some evening, daytime weekend focus groups. So what I would really like to ask, I know the committee does too, is feedback from you. You're welcome to just email me, let me know when I look at it. Certainly we'll be bringing it back to you, but we want to keep working on this as we're going so that by fall, when we start to hit these focus group, we have some specific questions that we can ask the public. And so that we can get this finalized by the end of the year.
okay, so I have a question for the strategic planning committee. So you're going to do polling again, which I think is great, but what does the strategic planning committee hope to get out of that polling, or what were some of the questions you plan to ask?
So see if there's stuff that we're not aware of that people are looking for is what I'm always looking for.
Okay.
So that would be the first thing I would do.
Yeah.
I'd probably go out on the internet and search around what's going on with other libraries and see what's going on locally with other libraries. If there's anything we're missing or anything like, we're really not gonna do that. And that kind of stuff, and then run that by you guys. Do you agree? Yeah, we don't need to spend our money on that or that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so suggestions are welcome and encouraged, so.
Mhm.
Where are we at? So, we'll see. Small start, but eight.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
So-
so like, your strategy to identify underutilized library services. And underserved members, and we definitely have underserved members in the
Mhm.
community.
okay. We'll write it down.
I've brought it up since I started here.
Okay,
I'll put it right. I think that we, are.
if
doing-
it's not listed
Yeah,
on it now, then definitely bring it forward.
yeah, well, I've brought this up multiple times that we should do, books to the homebound.
Okay. I think there's been pushback on staff
It's not, staff doesn't
Or-
usually do
or
it,
way
staff
to-
doesn't do it in other libraries.
or a way to get it done.
Yeah, it's all the libraries I know that do it all volunteer.
Okay, that's great.
Canton does it, they have a part-time person that takes care of that, I think they have their own vehicle, the library has its own vehicle to do that. That would be something, if you wanted to use volunteers, you just have to look into insurance.
I've looked into this and I brought it up before, and the libraries that do it, they have all the people that drive their cars, sign a waiver. That if they get in an accident, it's not the responsibility of the library, it's simple.
Okay, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't recall this.
I've
But I've also
literally
had-
brought it up
I've had
every
a number,
year.
I've had a number of strokes, so
Okay.
there are
I've
other
literally brought it
parts
up
of my life
every
that I don't
single year.
remember. Okay.
Because I have some homebound relatives that use it in their communities and absolutely love it. They used to be people that did this delivery, and now they use the delivery, and they, it's crucial to them. They actually have the same, my father-in-law uses it, and he has the same person that delivers to him every week. And I think that's really a service that we could do here easily. We have all these friends at the library, people that are looking for more things to do. We have all these volunteers that want to do things for us, and this is an underserved community.
We could consider it, yeah. Make it,
Okay.
make it a chapter.
Okay, so the two things when I came onto the board, I really wanted was is for this books to the homebound and the drive-through.
One down.
One down.
I'm sorry, Gwen, I really don't remember.
Truly, I brought it up every year.
That's good. And I'm telling you truly, I don't remember.
And I actually brought it up to the people that were doing our strategic planning with us that we paid so much
Uh-huh.
money for, and they didn't put it on here, and I was livid.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember them talking about it either.
Right, I talked to him until I was blue in the face that day,
Okay,
and when it got put together, it wasn't on there.
okay,
I'm like,
I'm sorry, I just wrote it down, so that's a
Thank you.
start
thank you.
for
Well,
me.
it's a start for me too, that somebody wrote it down, right? So,
Yeah.
You can always send a committee an email.
and I will.
Thank you. I'd like that first, because I'm not gonna remember.
And let me see if I can get some more information too that I can get from the library that I spend a lot of time in outside this area. Okay. You know what? I actually go to libraries when I visit places.
I do too.
Yes, yeah. So, in fact, when I go in May, I'm renewing my New York City library card. So, because you can renew it every,
6
it
weeks or
expires,
something, you
it
said.
expires every 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Very good.
well, because I don't live there.
No, I would
So
say
they
no.
allow you to come in and receive a library card as a visitor.
Nice.
Yes. We've used a lot of we take advantage a lot of how they're doing their marketing to share with friends of the library. Okay.
Okay, moving on to old business, we talked briefly
Mhm.
about Catherine's donation. I'm gonna recommend we just remove this from old business, since now we're talking about finance committee taking action to
I think
liquidate
we need
it,
to
or
vote. I
Yeah.
think we need
do
to
we have to
vote
vote that's okay,
on.
and then we can take it off?
do.
Okay,
Yeah.
So does someone want to make a motion on how to finalize the dispersion of Catherine's IRA bequeath?
Well, you can do it just out of what we said in finance.
Well, I can make a motion to move the $26,317.09.
Or whatever it is today.
That's what it is today.
Okay, thank you. We don't know if it's gonna be.
It might not be that.
The balance.
The balance to the Flagstar checking account to be used in the children's area.
Didn't you say something about reinvesting it too,
No,
under finance committee?
But it's going to be,
we're gonna be not reinvesting it, but we're going to be using it in the children's area.
and it's gonna be tagged specifically.
Okay, but $26,903 is not
We
gonna
get
sit
a
there
second.
for the next 12 months. I'm not second, well,
Oh,
I don't do that, but I haven't said that yet. Because I did not feel like,
Well, don't we second it then have,
Yeah, second.
The proper way is to make the motion, get a second, then we discuss.
Right.
Yeah.
That's proper.
oh, okay.
I was just,
I thought we discussed before we seconded.
well,
Go ahead.
we've evolved in a year.
Carrie, okay, Becky made it. Carrie seconded it. I am a questioning because I thought heard you say you were going to invest it, reinvest.
We said cashing it out and depositing it into the Flagstar account and allocating the amount from the fund balance from this towards projects of the youth department.
Okay. So it's not gonna sit in a separate account for the next 9 months till we.
No, we wanna get it out, make sure
Get
that
some
we have the
interest
funds
on
that
it.
it says we have, and then, so it has.
I mean, we could put it in a small CD, but it's under 100,000, so we're not gonna.
Well, I didn't know if we had to. I just,
No, we can, and the specific word in the fund balance and what we need to designate it.
because then it
for.
just sits there with all the other money. in the
Right,
other
but it's
cities.
designated specifically for that. It's
It'd be
fixed,
in the budgeting, it would be.
fixed for that.
Somewhere recorded in our history, there will be a number that is dedicated to Catherine, that's linked to
Right.
Catherine.
So like when go ahead, when April does fund balance.
Be a sign.
Yes, assigned. So
Is there
when
a new
April
fund
puts,
balance
when we
number,
we have the
or-
fund balance.
No, we don't do it that way.
On record right now,
Uh-huh.
you're all saying it's gonna be assigned fund balance.
Okay,
There's a record of it.
so there's not a like 762 or whatever that says that's what it is.
So like our fund balance, when we, we know we're gonna do like the sound things in the Idea Lab, that was very specific, assigned fund balance, right?
Mhm.
We said, these are the things we're gonna use fund balance for next year. And
Okay.
then we came up to a year, we said, we're not gonna use the fund balance at all this year, right?
I'm just concerned her number is lost, that we would not spend it all. Or that we would think we had more than we did and we overspent it, that's just the way my brain's working.
Okay,
and
my
I'm
question
just-
is does we think fund balance needs to be modified? To, that list in fund balance needs to be modified to include that.
And they account that way, right? It have a separate account.
I don't know if it needs a separate accounting number. Hang on, let me look at the budget. But fund balance. And I don't have my laptop with me. But when we create the list for fund balance every year, we know exactly what we're gonna spend
Mhm.
and what we're gonna spend. Like if we needed a new roof, it was gonna have an expense, right? And it
Right.
goes into what,
Right.
repairs.
So like if we spend it all in 1 year, I'm not so worried about that. If we spend only part of it now and part of it later, then how
It's-
much do I have left and did it grow at all? Kind of thing, or do we it's just the number it is now, and did it have to have a number that it was an account that it was attached?
Well,
to?
actually, that's sort of a good point, because if it's, even if it's sitting in a checking account, it is generating interest.
Yeah, so does the value we give to Catherine's donation include that or not? I just don't
That's a
wanna,
good point.
I don't want her or her heirs saying, what was the money used for? And we said, well, we think we used about 26 of it for XYZ and we can't.
No,
really
we should be
prove
able to
it.
say exactly what we used.
Still account for it all,
Right.
even the interest.
That's my concern.
Right.
So
can you give us an example of what the fund balance looks like, the items in the fund balance today?
For this year's budget, there was no fund balance used. That's the point.
So we didn't have, we weren't going to
We don't
use,
have that grid like every year that I've done used extra fund. Every year that I've said I need to use fund balance, I've had that grid.
so we don't have fund, we don't have anything specific for fund balance this year.
Straight from the budget.
What about the generator? If we bought the generator
That
this
would-
year,
That would be a budget amendment.
well, then we
that
need
would
to,
be-
okay, so this is,
So if we get that done this year, not be budgeted next year.
okay.
That
So
would be-
next year we would have, if we don't do the generator this year, next year that generator needs to be coming out of fund balance.
Right, so then
And-
you see that grid.
And we'll get that grid again, like when we did the tile work in the bathroom, all of those things were very specific to, that list was specific to fund balance. And the last year that Rich was here, we decided we'd spent money in fund balance for 3 years in a row, and we weren't going to do it again. Right, we were gonna take a break.
And they're all capital improvements, so. like
Yes.
Richard said, it should all be capital, remember it, I had done
Right.
it one way, and he said, no, do it all just for capital improvement. And I had the fund number, so that's when it becomes assigned to a fund number.
So
Okay.
we'll get a fund number because it is gonna be a capital investment.
To be honest with you, it would be building in improvements, most likely. So I mean, I can double check.
With Joe where it's exactly
Yeah, I
gonna
can double
go.
check.
Your
Most
point
likely
is very
that's-
valid.
Okay.
That very specific amount of money needs to be, because we want, the finance committee is recommending all of the money be used as a new project
Mhm.
in the youth department, and it's not to, like the shelving that's we already took into account that's gonna be spent this year. We don't want that absorbed into
Right.
the shelving. We want this to be a new project.
Mhm. Okay. So when I heard that, my mind said it needs a number, but,
I think you're right,
okay,
I would assume you sort of track it.
right?
okay. So. Given all that, how do we want to write an amend, or make a motion?
What's the motion? Do we know what the motion is right now?
Becky, I mean, looking to move I will fill in some words, but to move the $26,317.09 to Flagstar Bank checking account and allocate, excuse me, the entire amount to the children's area, and then in parentheses 984. But we'll continue.
Which is 984 is building improvements. I think though, instead of having the exact dollar amount,
Put,
full balance. Because that changes daily, and that's another thing. Our financial policy doesn't allow us to hold this money in a fund that it's in today.
Right, I understand.
So we have to move.
I agree.
Question on the.
But you don't wanna, you don't wanna, tie your hands with what it's gonna be, how it's gonna be used and what it's gonna be used for.
We do. Well,
No,
not
I
in the
don't.
use, not inside the use department.
Right, that's what I mean. But you're gonna designate it just to the youth department for
For new
new
projects.
stuff like phase 1, 2, 3.
Right.
For instance, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why Emily brought that to us.
Should we in the motion have a parenthetical in there that says currently at X dollars? So that way we know that there's a reference to that.
I think that's very good.
I think it's a weighted, it's a double checking.
Yes. So it doesn't end up being.
It's just not an open-ended
Right,
number. I mean, you don't know what the number really is if you just say the entire balance.
right. Yeah, you need to have some point in time where you put a
Right.
fork in it.
do I need to say that all of the motion or?
Just gonna read it.
Okay. I am make a motion to move the full balance currently at $26,317.09 of the IRA to Flagstar Bank checking account allocating the amount to the children's area for new projects, line item 984.
Are you gonna say?
Okay.
4 9 seconds.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
All right, 5 yes votes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, under new business, we've got 2 policies. Are you gonna run that, Eric? Or
Yeah,
somebody else?
that's fine.
Okay.
I can just keep it unless Quinn wants to at some point. So we've got, there's actually 4 policies listed on the
Oh, I thought
agenda.
we weren't gonna do the last 2.
The naming rights policy, we just had one note about it
Okay,
as far as what needs to happen there. We already mentioned it, but mentioned it again. And the credit card use, I don't think we're gonna cover, is that correct? Or were we gonna cover that one? Yeah, okay. So first one is the employee use of social media policy. It's the one labeled 5.15 on your screen, on your pages that we've got there. It's a lot of the same standard kinds of boilerplate you would see elsewhere about protecting the library for social media purposes, indemnifying them, making sure that we aren't having social media used by anyone that works at the library on behalf of the library without it specifically being designated as such. And also it does specify that they can't use it, social media that's not related to the library while on the job. Including registering for social media addresses, that sort of thing on behalf of the library without April say so. So generally, the only other thing that we added to sort of the boilerplate in terms of sign of the times is 5.15.6, which was the use of artificial intelligence tools, which basically we stated that they may not use it on any social media platform without authorization from the supervisor, and that any content that's AI assisted or written has to be reviewed and approved by the library director before publishing. That just keeps the human in the loop on the AI topics. So that way we know that they're not just publishing things that hallucinate or things that aren't actually what the library wants to represent. Beyond that, though, that's the extent of that policy. So I would like to make a motion.
Can I ask a
Yes,
question?
after we second the motion.
Oh, great.
It's okay for discussion.
It'll take me a while to remember.
That's okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the policy 5.15 and social media policy as written.
I was seconding.
No.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, wait,
then-
we discussed
Oh,
them.
do we discuss them?
All right. My only question, and it might be too minute for the overall policy, is what do we do with hashtags? Can anybody make a hashtag, or do we have certain hashtags we've made?
Yes.
Hashtags, I think, are usually just common ones, sometimes they'll crop up, but lately, except for today, hashtags don't get a lot of hashtags.
Okay,
Yeah, there's actually been a diminished use of hashtags overall in social media.
see, I'm not
It's,
very savvy on that,
More of a Twitter thing.
or any social media. I mean,
Yeah, it used to show up on Instagram a lot. It rarely shows
I
up.
made
now.
one yesterday.
I mean, if we wanted to do a hashtag
It brings visibility to post it.
about scrapbooking at the library, let's say it's coming up. Someone, hey, hashtag scrapbooking, and can anybody do that? Or do we want to make some that we make sure get used or try to use? Or is this like too minute of a discussion for this?
I think it falls under content
Okay,
in general.
Yeah,
okay,
which falls under April saying yes or no.
okay.
Right.
Got it. I'm good. Like I said, I'm not very savvy.
One thing on formatting, under 5.15.3, that library policy is underlined, be
Underlined.
respectful is not, and then
Yeah.
on the back, privacy and
Mhm.
confidentiality is different and not represented in the school.
I was reading this afternoon, and I was like, oh, okay, so I made notes. To my
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
So it's gonna be
As amended.
as amended.
as amended. Now I can say all in
Okay.
favor? Or do you have to like read
You just as a.
as
Yes.
amended? Okay. And it got seconded by Carrie again as amended? Okay,
No, you're gonna,
It was one.
I'm sorry.
and he said as amended,
And you were saying, and you were okay,
yes,
and now we're voting.
now we're voting.
All in favor?
Hi.
Oh my God, okay.
Okay, so the
Thank
second one,
you, 5 yes votes?
Before you move on to
Yes.
this, if I can make a little comment on it. So you guys in the past have done like what we call friendly amendments. Meaning you
Yes.
just agree to agree and
Yes.
everybody goes ahead, right? So,
Mm-hmm,
I mean, if we've done it in the past, it's still okay to do it in the future.
okay,
And
all right,
Until somebody puts their foot down and says no more.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I'm not gonna do that.
Thanks.
I'm not, that big on this. So,
okay, so
you wanna move on to the next
Yes.
second one?
we can move on to the next one, which is 1Y, the social media policy. There's some notes you'll notice in the right-hand column from the attorney, just some basic in practice kinds of notes in general. And I'll explain sort of what those mean. One, on the first page, before we talk about all the rest of it, one on the first page said that in a certain case, there was a case where a mayor was representing themselves as the mayor. So if April, for example, had her own webpage or her own social media account, and she represented herself as the library director, that can be interpreted as a library account. So we have to be careful as board members, but also as members of the employment of the library, not to represent the library as social media by using your title or your email address that are library related. So that's what that point basically says there from the attorney.
So if you see like the last from Ann, it says, so make sure that your board members are not using their personal web pages for this type of activity.
Okay.
So, and that's the one note on the front and the back.
Thank you.
Under violations and appeals where it says the library reserves the right to ban or block users. It says who have posted in violation of this, we still have to follow due process. It doesn't necessarily have to say that in the policy because that's a given.
So when you're saying it, they would be banned or blocked in due process, is that what you're?
Well,
implying?
I'm saying we don't have to say anything about that
How
piece
you
of it
do that, okay,
because it's a given legality.
okay,
It also says, she also says it's risky, but it should be used to address extreme cases because there was a case of banning someone who posted, the court found a First Amendment violation for that. She says she thinks it could be left in the policy, but she would not ban a patron from posting without legal consultation. So that's still up to the director at that point to consult with an attorney about banning or blocking the user.
okay,
In our discussion too, it originally said to block users and that we would notify the blocked user, but you can't notify a user that you blocked because you blocked them. So we pulled that out.
okay,
So it basically is there so that if there is some extreme circumstance with social media where there's like, just as an example, a death threat or something like that, that we would have the right to ban them, but we would want to consult with an attorney before we did so.
okay.
So, excuse me. So this is the use of the library's social media.
This is the social media library policy for the
For the employees and for board members.
And he's asking what
I'm
one.
trying to
wants
defer
versus-
between the two of them. So this is the employees using social media,
Mhm.
right? First one.
Right,
And this is,
Mhm.
letting the public know how our social media is.
it also affects comments. So if you have, if the library posts, for example, an Instagram post and a library user, a patron, or even a community member posts a comment on there that is harmful in some way, that we reserve the right to remove that and or ban or block the user depending on the severity of something like that.
don't you already have like a SOP for your moderators, admins? Moderator admins have an SOP of what's offensive and what's not offensive. What
We
doesn't?
will now,
Okay.
that's what we need.
I mean, I don't know how it operates now. I kind of want
Right
to.
now,
Right,
Okay, so maybe to help me, what social media platforms do you have?
we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have TikTok.
But we also could have we technically could have any social media presence that a person warrants themselves as a member of the library staff and creates. So let's say, they go on whatever site it might be and they create one and they say, I am assistant director of the library. That now effectively becomes representing it as the library.
That's why you and I, when we see that stuff, that we know each other, we never say who we are.
Right. Yeah.
We're just our own ourselves.
Yeah. I might say I've worked with the library, I've been at the library, but I'm not going to list that I'm like president of the library work. So, and if you look at page 2 where it says unauthorized content, there's the general buckets for things that are not considered there. And just from having worked for companies that deal with social media on these things, it's a fairly broad list, but it allows us to be selective about what we choose to ban. You know, if it's clearly something that is sexually harassing or something like that, that is usually pretty obvious in terms of the content. Spam or commercial messages, there's some gray area.
But it's not subjective. Are you saying it is subjective?
I'm saying to some degree it is subjective, but it's subject to the library director's decision on that. I believe it says somewhere in there that it's, I forget exactly where it said something about the right of the library to reserve the right to delete poster comments, banner block users. Not sure what the other piece of that is. Yeah, that's a good question. We talked about that quite about where that.
That's on violations and appeals. Sure.
Yeah.
Reserves the right to ban block.
Yeah, but then there's also deleting poster comments. I guess that
It's part of that.
it. I guess it covers that. So okay.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's basically my take on it. Anybody else want to add anything or have any questions about it?
And I think it's bullet point, price terms. Exactly, short term, something that would be considered a library record. That is posted without permission of the patron first family by the record, so that's unauthorized content. Then it further says, for example, no picture of a library program shall be posted without permission of every person in that picture. I think that's a bit strong. I think it needs to be specific more to library record. We are next going to be working on a photography policy. But I do think that one's a bit strong. If we have
Okay,
this
so we
in
talked
there-
about this in that meeting.
Yeah, I think if we have this one in there, my concern is we're gonna have to go back and change it based on getting a photography policy. Because I can't imagine a photography policy is gonna say that you need to get every single person's permission.
Well, absolutely it will. You cannot put people, we cannot put people's picture
You
out.
can't.
And this is what we discussed in the policy meeting, was do we have a form now when people walk into a program where they sent the parent or the person, the adult responsible signs that if your image is used in our social media, you're okay with that.
And that's why.
And you said, right.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that until we have a policy.
You didn't ever mention it until we
Yeah,
have a
from-
policy. In our meeting though, I didn't know you were looking at doing a photography policy. That did not come
Well,
up.
that came
Yeah.
up. I was thinking about that after our meeting. But
Because I said, why aren't we doing that? Like, I know West Bloomfield does it because I remember signing it many times. As I walked into a program with my children, they would ask us to sign a form that said, if your child or yourself is, your image is shown on social media, you're approving that. And I know many moms that said no.
yeah, and that's why we're doing it from the back now. In my past libraries that I've worked at, it's been basically when you register, you are signing up that you are allowing it. I'm not comfortable with that. I just want to bring this to the attention because I just think it's a bit strong. It's my concern. You can leave it for now until we get the photography policy, but.
I didn't even know we were doing a photography policy.
Right, well, that's because after we had the meeting.
Mhm.
I prepared for our next meeting by thinking about what we're gonna do next. And having seen that, that's something you think about,
Okay.
having that discussion. So that's all I'm bringing up, 'cause I think it's strong. If you wanna leave it in there for now, and we can always bring this back if we need to, maybe we won't have to.
I agree.
I just wanna be mindful.
Can I ask what are you saying is too strong?
That
Not verbatim, what's too strong?
that no picture shall be posted without permission of every person in that picture. So until we have some further clarification.
Would you just say
we should-
identifiable picture? Because if you're taking pictures from the back, that might be, to me, I might be ornery and say no. But if you can't identify who you are, then what are you gonna care?
Sounds better.
I mean, is that soften it up enough?
Sounds better.
What do you think, Karen?
I think if you say every identifiable person in that picture, that would
Oh,
help.
there you go.
I'm not sure that it covers it completely because, well, there's two parts of it. I start thinking about the implications. Number one is who deems that it's identifiable.
So you just want to add that word.
You say, except for these two caveats, because if you said, okay, we know this one gentleman from wherever here in the library always wears a red hat or a blue hat or a green hat or whatever it might be, that might identify them specifically because we know what they look like, we know the characteristics of that person. So from the back, from the front, from the side, whatever it might be. If you said, no, that we know that that person is short and bald. Maybe that helps identify the person as well. So like what constitutes identifiable? That's the question that I'm asking here.
I think identifiable to whom, you know, because I mean, a mother or a grandma will know the backside of.
Correct.
True.
That also, yes, that also brings that into question too. Like I can identify that person as being in the picture. I don't want my child in that picture because I can identify that person as my child. So I mean, it starts to get very murky. Yeah, identifiable is, I guess my point is identifiable is a subjective term and we should try to avoid
We
subjectivity.
have a better word.
I don't. No, off the top of my head.
Well, if you're gonna bring forward another policy that will alter this, I would say you wait till you get that other policy that's gonna alter this. At this point.
Yeah.
This has already been approved, right, by the attorney?
It can.
Yeah.
It came from you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it was approved by the attorney.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like my personal preference for this, because of the fact we don't know what the photography policy will say exactly, is to approve it as this with a footnote that says that we need to review this when the photography policy comes up as a part of.
We have so many we're gonna review as we change things.
Well, unless that's Eric, unless that's in writing on this document,
Right, that's the.
then why are we voting?
Right.
You have a
That's a good
comment?
point.
Yes, it says, an identifiable image refers to a photograph or visual representation. And it ran out of space. It said, there's one there. Give me a minute and I'll figure it out. Like I said, I'm not the best on,
Person, those are two different things.
Right.
okay, hold on. I typed in person and it came back image, so maybe they don't have it.
I think image is the word that is usually used.
Okay,
Yeah, but that can be identified.
and okay. Refers to a photograph or visual representation where the person depicted can be recognized by their face, their likeness, and other distinguishing features. This concept is important in legal contexts, particularly regarding privacy and consent for using such images.
That's why I was really surprised that we don't already have a policy where we, when people, like for registration or when they walk in the door, they don't sign. I was surprised we don't do that today.
Okay.
I actually thought we did when I remember my kids coming in here and having pictures taken,
Mhm.
you know, at programs in here.
It hasn't, not since I've been here, I haven't seen
Okay.
something like that. That's why I'd like to get it done. I see different options, no identifiable images. Yes. Is there anything else?
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question here. So if we were to suggest something at this moment, it's going back to the attorney. Right?
It probably has to ultimately.
I mean, in general, it's gonna go back to the attorney. So we're not gonna go voting on it.
Well, I think we should vote on it, and
As
if
it is.
and when, yeah, and if and when we get a photography policy, we can modify this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll
Yeah.
deal with it with the
Yes.
photography policy. Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
I was just,
100%.
yes.
We're gonna just kick this can around a circle here.
Chat GPT suggests that we remove the word identifiable completely.
There, what does it say?
But it doesn't say that in there.
It
It's
doesn't
not
say
even in there
identify,
now.
yeah, right, it's not in there now.
Right, we were gonna, it says.
But
oh,
April's concern was having everybody that's in that picture has to give us permission. And we sort of had that conversation in the policy meeting. And April says, well, we only do pictures with the back of people's heads.
Okay.
Well, you're safeguarding yourself by doing that right now.
Sorry.
You're kind of safeguarding yourself to a point.
Are we gonna vote? Are we done discussing? Are we
Somebody's gonna amend the
making
motion.
any I thought we weren't going to do that.
That's what I said, unless.
Oh,
somebody's gonna
unless,
amend
I
the
didn't hear
motion.
that
Let's
part.
vote.
Okay. All right, so Becky, the original was
No,
Eric.
Eric.
I mean,
Eric made the motion. Just do it as it's
Except-
presented
Except
and that,
essential meeting policy 1Y as
Can
written.
you,
we've talked around it enough that we're back to that. So
Yeah.
Gwen's seconding that. Is that correct, Gwen?
I don't remember, Karen, did I second that?
You are.
Thank you very much. I can't remember that long ago.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5 yes votes. You wanna try for the last one?
Sure. you can try
Okay.
for it.
We have two
Two
more.
more.
The last one's the one that's, to me, is very important.
So there's just one piece of it that's a question. So 5.16, the credit card use policy. I don't even, this is an interesting part, because I don't remember talking about this in the policy.
We didn't.
Okay.
And so I was surprised when we got an email that said that we approved it. Because what happened was April asked us if we would review this before it came to the board meeting. I'm on both committees. I reviewed it and approved it in the finance committee.
And I looked at it and did not respond, but I actually approved of the language, so I know.
Send this, so I.
And I said, why not? And we talked about this in finance and said, okay, instead of holding this on for another month, the only one that he hasn't really looked at it is Eric. Why don't you send it to Eric saying the rest of the finance approved it? Would you look at it?
I looked at it and I just didn't respond, so I do agree with
Okay.
what it says, so,
Okay.
yes.
One of the things I really like about this is that, one, we've only had credit cards for like a year and a half. We didn't have them before.
Mhm.
And so, and then we really didn't have policy around that. And, you know, the attorney gave us this and April had some good ideas about it. And it's just, you know, it's just good auditing practices.
Mhm.
Now, I just want to bring to attention that when we talked about it in finance, since then I did add that. You should have seen I added that one sentence. You all need to see that. It was in red. It's not in red now, but 5.16.4. The library credit card shall not be used for the purchase of any services or goods for or for the benefit of anyone who is not an employee of the library.
And the other thing that's gonna happen is the credit card, the big thing's gonna happen, the credit cards are gonna stay in-house.
Okay, and so you go get a credit card and make a purchase? Is that-
Everybody has a credit card that has their name on it,
Mhm.
but it's not going to be in their, on their person.
Mhm.
It's going to stay here, and then when they need it, they come and check it out,
Okay,
so.
got it.
So
Any
I'm sorry.
I bet. I don't know.
As a treasurer, I have
I
one.
just reread that sentence 3 times. What are you trying to, what's the goal of that?
Well, mainly because you have to be careful of spouses, friends,
Mhm.
things like that. Odd things can happen.
Yeah, I get that. But as I read it the first time, it was like, okay, I'll just read it aloud. Maybe that's the problem here. A library credit card shall not be used for the purchase of any services or goods for, or for the benefit of anyone who is not an employee of the library.
Right.
Well, it's not gonna benefit the employees.
Yeah.
It benefits the library, right? The employee is just one using it, right? Is that what we're getting at, or am I just totally?
No, what we're saying is that you can't buy something, I can't buy something to give to you, I can't buy something that helps you.
Correct. With this, with our credit card,
Right, with the library credit card,
and typically only the employees are using it, right?
correct.
So if, maybe this sounds a little bit, if it's a service or good, that would. And you're throwing me off, I can reread it. Library credit should not be used for the purchase of any services or goods for, so you're buying, so you're not gonna, you can't use it to purchase something for someone else. Or to get something that's going to benefit someone else.
So can I buy William and ice cream with my credit card?
No,
Okay. I know it would benefit
Well,
you, Bennett.
Technically,
Oh,
if
yeah,
they're a
okay.
library employee.
but we're not.
Well, no, but I'm saying
Right.
it doesn't say, it doesn't cover all aspects of that.
Yeah, I don't know, I kind of like it leaves me hanging there at the
Mhm.
end. It's almost like, okay, but the employee can use it to buy stuff for themselves.
Or for another employee of the library.
Or something, without saying.
Here, it states that it can only be used for library business.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just a stronger statement that enhances that.
It's just words we trip over, you know what I mean?
I'm okay with it.
It just sounded weird. So. Again, I'll ask that question, since I thought I heard you slipped it in. Right, the attorney hasn't even seen this?
That statement,
Not that statement. But it should be.
if you want to strike it, you're welcome to strike it.
They're good with it, I'm okay with it too, I just needed a little bit of a, what does it really mean? Or what does that mean?
It's protective.
So I'm gonna make a motion to approve the credit card use policy 5.1.6, as stated.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 5 yes votes. Oh, and we are not doing naming rights.
We
tonight.
are doing.
We are doing naming
We
rights.
beat this thing back.
This is
Okay.
what we've been waiting on.
The one question that we had that was noted in the policy committee meeting, there was a note about, we need the finance committee to finalize the room
Yeah.
amounts.
Yeah.
On it.
Yes.
Done, the policy committee meeting minutes, that's my fault, because I get these things done, I do your minutes usually right after
Mhm.
the meeting, and I vote them,
Got it.
and then
So,
back.
so I'm fine with it because I just didn't have any visibility in the finance committee movements, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
so last week we went through.
So is this the final list or
This is-
okay,
Yes. So from that perspective, the policy committee report should have said that what was that? We were waiting on the finalization of the
Wait a
room
second.
amount, which we are actually not, just for the record.
Right.
I'm just stating that for the record. So, April, do you want to speak to sort of what the intent of this was in general for the rest of the group? Or I can make a motion.
When you could actually, because I think you really had a good. handle on it.
Think on what we were doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so these naming rights we have all these different areas of the library, and when we first came into this library and at the library, the previous one, there were different sections of the library and even furniture that has been sponsored. And this is really all about sponsorship, right? So a couple things that we did, we decided that these sponsorships, we didn't have time limits around them. All right, so now we have time limits around those sponsorships. How long would they last? We're still gonna keep people's names around, but I think did we decide 10 years? Yeah, I think we decided 10 years. So, like McDonald's, donated the drop boxes,
Right.
right? Outside. So, we're now into year 6, so 4 years from now, if somebody else wanted to actually, sponsor those, they could sponsor them, and we actually came up with very, significant dollar amounts.
can I ask?
Yes,
If I was the guy who owned the 3 McDonald's and I gave the $15,000 for that,
Mhm.
and nobody told me, and it's good for 10 years, and now in 10 years you come back and tell me, well, I want more, are any of these naming rights retroactive because we didn't have the time policy in place?
the people that's names are there today are actually gonna stay on a plaque.
And we're gonna add to the new one?
Yes,
Okay, because I would be
Yes,
upset if I spent that
absolutely.
money and then all of a sudden you say, oh, well, it was
Absolutely.
only good for 10.
right.
Okay.
Going forward, people will know it's good for 10 years, but
Okay.
even if they give, we're not gonna
just keep it on.
remove their name,
All right.
okay? Because I don't think that's right.
No, I don't either. That's
Right.
why I brought it up.
Right. No. So, for example, like, the garage,
Mhm.
right?
Like Jerry and Roger, was it the crash they did or was it the
I don't remember because
computers? Somebody did.
I don't remember who did the garage,
Mhm.
but the garage,
The Friends was the garage,
um,
and Jerry and Roger are specifically the room. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, that's all right, but actually, we don't have the friends. room
Friends
on.
room's not on here.
Well, I thought that was, I didn't know if they wanted anyone else.
Is Jerry Rogers' name on?
No,
Yeah.
they're on there. And yeah, they're on there.
They're on there.
And so I just thought it wasn't sure if we should.
It's still our building.
I can add
I would,
it.
I mean,
Then-
it,
Yeah. Down there.
I mean, I'm thrilled that we have the friends and they're here, but it's still part of the building.
Mhm.
There shouldn't be any.
We can call them to vote or something, you know, that.
Right. I mean, it really shouldn't be any exceptions, right? Because.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at the garage, this is the money that we're asking, and it's, a lot of it's by square footage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so the garage was that dollar amount to sponsor the garage going forward. After, the sponsorship is up in in 4 years, if somebody else wants to sponsor it. And we put a big plaque up with their name on it, it's gonna be significantly different amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the study rooms is the same amount we asked for.
the
I think
what,
we asked for 5 on the study room, so we
yeah,
needed.
many of those we did not change.
Okay.
Yes.
For that.
Yes, so April went through and looked at other places, and a lot of it is based on square footage, and that's
Mhm.
what we did, and that's what we
Okay.
did on. Okay, so if people have comments about the dollar amounts that we put on these, for Leave a Legacy, for this list of rooms or an
Mhm.
area, let us know, because this has taken a lot
Mm-hmm.
of time to really think this through.
Yeah, you're done.
We don't know if we're done, we don't know if we've got it right,
Uh-huh.
we hope we've got it right, we hope it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
I did have one comment, one question.
okay.
The deferred gifts part about it too, I was reading through that and thinking about like, what if someone does something basically in perpetuity? And that's part of where it says that the amount and all of that would be signed by a mutual signed agreement. So they could do something in perpetuity if they did, but we'd have to sign the agreement to do so.
Right.
And then it would be like, if they gave 10 grand a year every year, or 10 grand every 10 years, or whatever it might be. We'd have to sign an agreement, so they'll obviously have like escalation clauses for
Right,
increasing
and
price.
because like the friends, they might wanna, sponsor their room forever,
Some,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
One other question I had, as long as we're talking about this in general, first of all, if we're gonna do the Friends room, what means we have to come up with a number? Or we can't approve this document?
True, well, we can always amend this is why it's called an an addendum,
And then,
right, and the,
Addendum portion.
right, just like
Okay.
ACH,
then we can plan. on doing
like
that.
our ACH, if we have to make an amendment to our ACH, it comes back as an addendum. Right, and that's specifically why this was done this way.
My other question is one of practicality related to some of the items that are on here.
Mhm.
I'm just going hypothetical, and I hate to play devil's advocate and
No,
go
it's good.
youth animal chairs per chair. Does that mean that for as long as we have the gift, we are required to keep a youth animal chair? What if
Good
we do,
question,
what if we
because
decide that doesn't fit our design scheme?
because those chairs, that dollar amount was what those chairs were when we
Mhm.
put the library.
There was a lady who was very specific about that.
So,
But that could be a modification too, right?
It could
Should
possibly
we use chair?
for now. I think that's a good point. I think I would keep it for now and then, let's say let's say in phase 4, Emily's like, we're tired of the animal chairs, or we want to do
Right.
a new type of chair, or just something like.
like she was
that.
showing
Then
us,
we could add.
law.
Or if for some
Or she
reason the
wants to
patio
like
is.
sponsor a tree, like
we decide,
changing the
hey,
columns
we-
into a tree. That's
build
something
on
we
top of
don't
the
have
patio.
yet. We would just.
Not
make
that we're
an
going to do
addendum
that.
to do that. Add a tree.
Yeah, the other question is like, what if we decided to build where the patio is? Right now we have an amount that's set for the patio. Does that prohibit us from doing any further construction on where the patio would be?
I don't think so.
If we decide to take down the drive-up window, is that,
I don't think so. Because you would just amend the addendum. Accordingly.
But if sponsored
Sponsored it, you're saying.
right? So someone sponsors the book drop, and we no longer have a book drop for whatever reason.
You should have to talk to them about that. You have to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at a minimum,
Sure.
yeah, no, at a minimum, since it doesn't specify it in this naming rights policy, I think there ought to be a note in there that somewhere in the naming rights, that the signed agreement should specify what happens in the event that something becomes obsolete.
I don't disagree.
I don't
So-
either.
Let's take it back to policy.
Well, there's the other thing too, so you say that you had a 10-year, right, window on this, right, lifespan of the. All right, so I'll use McDonald's, because I heard that's.
Right, they
So
did the
McDonald's
Did the
is-
drop off.
What
They did
are
drop
they?
boxes.
The drop off, right?
Mhm,
Okay,
yep.
so yeah, so anyway, so it's $10,000 and it's over 10 years, so maybe McDonald's doesn't want anybody else to sponsor. it.
Okay.
How did that get? Okay, I mean, is it in here?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
it's in- absolutely, it's in here. Yes,
Okay.
so, like the Friends, we would go back to the Friends and say, okay, you know, do you want, this is up for sponsorship again, but we definitely would go back to McDonald's.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, what about this one, Eric, under garage? But it's same as for 10 years, but so long as it aligns with the library's missions and goals. If it's the mission and the goals change.
That's true.
But it says it will be there no longer than 10 years.
I mean, you can keep a plaque, but I
No, that would allow us, if the library's goals were to get rid of animal chairs for whatever reason, if that was actually the goal or a stated part of the goal was to redesign the interior of the library such that it doesn't have animal chairs, that could then be deemed under duration, I suppose.
and then the plaque, which, saying you the animal chairs is fine, if you want to do the in perpetuity, the original ones. It's just, we once had animal chairs.
Sponsored by,
Sponsored by someone.
Right, because we have in here under duration, naming opportunities will normally remain in place for a period no longer than 10 years, although a plaque acknowledging the donation will remain in location in perpetuity so long as it
That's the
aligns with
key,
the
yeah.
library's missions and goals.
So long as it aligns is the key word. That's actually, it's surprising. That's the key phrase in this one. Because it allows us to make a change on the basis of what we change within the library so that we're not bound to have animal chairs for the rest of our lives.
And one of the things I don't think we have is
Sorry.
we talk about this contract, but we actually don't have the contract.
An application, yes, a procedural application will be developed.
I don't know what we did when we were building the building.
Well, Glenn had a piece of paper that he carried around that took people's names and how much are you willing to spend, and
That was it.
sometimes he was like, I don't think 2,000 is enough. I think we might need 5 for that. And once we got one at 5, we got the rest of them at 5. So
What's the largest one we have right now?
Largest one.
The largest,
the
yeah,
Dropbox is pretty big.
Yeah.
I remember.
Largest amount,
no, largest amount.
largest amount.
Not what's on the list, but what actually.
Oh,
someone's
like the
actually paying
garage
for
was
stuff.
20, maybe the friend's room was 20, something was 20.
From the past?
Yeah.
So I just,
Yes.
I don't have a.
That-
I'm on the past.
No, I was just wondering like what currently, if there's one that's like, we have out here gathering place.
The
community room.
patio and the portico, if for a new one, if we had somebody that was really generous, we want them to build a portico for us.
No, I understand that.
yeah, you could,
I'm wondering who currently,
Currently, who
Oh.
sponsors the largest.
yes,
The largest sponsors were either Jerry and Roger together or the Friends. I believe it was around $20,000 for both of those
That was fabulous.
things. Okay, and so that was the largest one I recall, although McDonald's Dropbox was a big one too,
It was 10.
but like 10.
The flag stars names over there, I don't know what they did.
They bought furniture in the adult area that's all in front of where that sign is. Because we gave credit to the lady who bought the chairs in the kids area. We gave credit to Flagstar, but she's the one she was the reason we started doing
The chairs,
specific
okay.
things like that.
Right.
Was because that's what she wanted to do because of kids, grandkids, I don't remember. Maybe it was a friend's daughter or something. There's a story there, but there was a reason she very
Okay.
specifically wanted to do that. And I think maybe the person,
Well, just like the benches outside, do they have the Friends donated?
there are some that have plaques on
Tables.
them.
The
No, but
tables,
there were a couple benches that got moved to the staff area that were donated in somebody's name at the old building. Just like those bricks came from the old building. Those things we didn't change. but we didn't, look to do everything, but we did put plaques on the patios. Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought.
So every one of these things actually has
No,
a sponsor.
Not in today.
no.
No.
Should Portico be on the
Company
list
without
because we don't have one right now?
Third of them, quarter of them.
Ballpark, like, how many
I don't know,
sponsors
yeah,
now
that's
are on this list? Yeah, because I,
We added
this is
something
where
that
policy
was
and finance overlap. I have a
like
practical
20.
salesperson's question about this.
There's about
So-
20 or so, I would say, overall would cover it if we said there were about 20 things sponsored
Today.
today.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I could go down the list. Give you.
It's most of the study rooms, it's
There's
the,
still
okay. And then there was the garage and the kids' computers and some kids' furniture and some adult furniture. Oh, the table
The team
and
gaming area.
the gaming stuff. But that person did not want to be identified, I remember.
okay, so. One small question, then one philosophical salesperson's perspective on this in general, if I may. You'll indulge me on this. So the addendum says right now it just has a dollar amount, but it doesn't specify the term anywhere in there. And I understand sort of, I intellectually understand what we're talking about like that. I assume if we said adult area seating, it's $1,500, it's a one-time payment of $1,500 for that 10-year period,
Mhm.
correct? It doesn't really seem to state that anywhere in the document. So it looks like it could be, like, I'm looking at this and I'm wondering,
It definitely states in the document. Under duration.
correct, but it doesn't say the amount. That amount is for the duration, but does it say that? Like, I can't tell whether that's $1,500
You're looking
one
for it
time.
to be a recurring versus a one-time?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. No,
I'm not wondering that.
I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is, by reading this through here, it says that it's a 10-year duration, and then I see a price. Well, if I say to you, okay, it's, your shoes are $50, but I'm gonna charge you every year that you have them. That's a far different thing than just $50. And it doesn't
I
state
think
that.
you're splitting hairs.
I
Eric.
don't, that doesn't come to my mind easily that, oh, was this for 1 year or 10 years?
Right,
I'm thinking,
'cause
because
we're
it says
saying
the
10 years
duration is
across the
10
board, huh?
years, is 10 years. That's how I would interpret
I
it.
just think that it should say somewhere in there that it is a single payment rather than,
A one-time payment for a 10-year duration.
yes, I think it should say that somewhere in there.
Fine.
That's my opinion on it.
Are
Because
these donations?
normally when you're looking like from a sale, like I said, again, from a salesperson's perspective, when you're looking at a dollar amount, you want to know the
Okay, but
amount.
we could put that in the
I
contract.
was gonna say that would be more.
It could be.
expensive.
Absolutely.
Sure, it could be.
Because when we do the contract, it's gonna be an upfront donation.
Okay, I'm just thinking like here's how I think about policy too. I think about
I'm thinking
if,
you have 2 minutes left because it's almost 8:30.
okay,
My husband's been sitting there since 8 o'clock waiting for us.
No, but
so.
I see what you're saying, but it has to be part, it has to be part of the contract.
Well, and here's my general rule of thumb with policy committee in general. And what I think about every time we go into a policy committee is if something happened to all of us on the board at one time, including Amy and April, who was a sweep and everyone came in and did this, would someone be able to take over the operations of this and know what we intended without having to rewrite or reread those things?
I would hope so, since most of it, the attorney has approved already, right?
Right. But I look at this and I question whether it's a one time or it's annual.
Why would you think that when we have duration on there of 10 years?
Anything that you might rent, always has, you might say it's, if I,
Okay, but if you're gonna rent an apartment, you're gonna sign a lease, which is a contract.
sure. Right,
So you're
And it was-
saying that we
and
need to modify the,
my lease would say $1,000 per month.
so you're saying we need to modify the addendum 3 to say, leave a legacy list of rooms and areas, and it lists the room, and it lists the amount, and we have another column that's, or say, leave a legacy list of rooms and areas, I mean, do you want it to say for 10-year duration?
Maybe that would be in your lease, which would be in our contract.
Couldn't you put a little asterisk at the end after areas on the agenda?
Yes, that's sort of what that's what I was suggesting.
See, section D guidelines and regulations, duration.
Or just 10-year duration.
I think you're missing Eric's point. Cause Eric's saying,
Yeah, well, personally for me, I look at these in amounts and I can't believe that they would be yearly, but I guess I see the point.
No, I think that if you were to hand this to someone and they look at that number, they're gonna say, is this one time or is this per year? Like, if I hand this to McDonald's, they're gonna go, well, okay, so $1,500 and I get it for 10 years, really?
So could we say, down at the bottom, 1 year one, not 1 year.
You got you, got you.
One time sponsorship for 10 years, up to 10 years. Cause that's what it says up to.
Yeah.
Policy says up, one time sponsorship.
I think just it's somewhere that we have to specify that. I think that you could get in trouble with someone.
Where's the addendum called out in the document itself? When you, without me.
you
searching?
don't need to put it, and
It's just.
you don't have to call it out. It doesn't.
No, I know that. So
There-
this
there is-
addendum is
There is,
addendum number 3.
under item C, it says including but not limited to addendum A.
And,
Well, it
it's
doesn't say
in, the-
addendum
it's
A,
in
it's addendum
B,
B.
general
Right.
definitions, the first bullet. It says, includes but not limited to those in addendum 3.
Yeah, and which reminds me that if you do go for this, you're gonna have to say amended, because under donations I caught earlier today. Exhibit A, and it should be there. Under D guidelines and regulations.
Under C, it's also addendum A. Right, second line of the second page.
You know what?
That's
Take
what I
it to policy and fix it. No, I'm serious. Take it back to policy, we'll talk about it next week.
Give me a
You're
chance.
right.
Give me a
Right,
chance to
vote
look
on
at
it,
it.
it's clean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm all right with that.
No. Because there's too many changes and then it comes back and then we go, oh, we didn't really say that, but it went into, no.
We generally catch it in policy, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
Eric, can you email me something?
Yes,
See.
yeah, there was another piece that I had forgotten what my second point was. That was a larger point in general.
Okay, so we're
It'll
it's
come.
going back to the.
Well, you
policy.
talked
Go back
about the
to-
policy, but you didn't
I'll-
talk about the sales.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm trying to remember what my
Thank you.
big point was. It'll come to me on the ride home. You'll hear
There
it.
you go. You'll tell me. That's-
But yeah, let's take it back to policy. By then I'll remember and I'll write it down.
Yeah.
So that I,
It's
Yeah,
coming
right,
back to
back-
policy.
back to policy.
8:32.
Finance
Okay,
committee, do
We
you
did not make a motion when we started talking.
Mhm.
about it.
There are no
finance
amounts.
committee, do you want anything in it? Okay. Policy, look at it.
Okay, there's no
finance
announcements.
committee needs to tell us about friends or not. That is the one thing. But that's worth.
Becky has an announcement.
April can bring that back. She's doing it by square footage. I understand April's point about, not saying to the friends, okay, but also it's still our building.
Mhm. You,
Nobody
I
sponsored
will
it, their
tell you
name's not going
something,
away.
I'll tell you something when the cameras are off.
I just remember what it was. I want to get it out before I forget about what it is. So from a sales perspective, when you're trying to meet services with sales and trying to maximize your revenue, something like this, you have to find the price point at which people are willing to pay a certain amount.
Mhm.
You said that the highest value that we have right now is the highest sponsorship that's active right now is $20,000.
Because because these other things had not been identified before.
Okay, that's a decent answer to that. Because my question is like, do we reasonably expect there to be someone that would sponsor us for $350,000?
Well, not
I
a
do.
person, but maybe, maybe even a very rich person.
No, I'm saying like
Maybe a
someone.
company.
No, I get that. But what I'm saying is like, if we've only got $20,000 as the highest level now, is it because, as you said, we didn't have those available to
Mhm.
other people to choose from? That makes sense. If we did have those to choose from and nobody's taking anything above $20,000, I would question whether those values are reasonable.
This is all new.
Okay, I'm okay with that answer then.
That's why we have amendments.
Hey, so I don't hit you up with this next one?
Yeah.
So what if somebody I'll just take the portico, right? Well, no, I'll set that one aside, because nobody's gonna call it other than a portico, but let's take the gathering, the room.
This room.
This room here. So it's currently not being sponsored, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's just say you got somebody, but then that person says, well, I don't want it to be called the gathering place. But I'll put my name, give you
That's
$250,000.
It's already in
It's
there.
a policy.
It's, you've covered that, you
Yes.
can rename it.
Yes.
It could be the
No, it's not,
Amazon
they can't
gathering
give it
place,
up.
the Amazon gathering place or whatever, we could do that.
No, they have to bring it to the, they have to bring it to the board for us to approve it.
Okay. But it's already covered, yes.
Yeah, you should have read it before you can.
Nah, I don't read so.
That's why it's sent out there.
Yeah, I know.
Gonna do like Ken and Barbie naming it, like maybe the Barbie movie, we're gonna call it the Bro Mansion.
No,
Whatever.
no, they can't come in and say, I'm gonna give you $350,000 for the
pink.
portico, and it
Want
needs
pink.
to say, it needs to say, you know, Lou's Place or something, right?
McDonald's.
Right, okay, so with that said, no, I agree, I agree.
You can't say, no.
But,
Sponsored by.
so the name, the
Sponsored by
name of the record
Doritos.
is on one giant plaque.
Irish.
It's not in it.
Idiocracy.
Oh, no, it's in each area.
Okay,
right?
so somebody donates
Secretary of State sponsored
$300,000
by Mountain Dew.
for a portico,
There'll be
they're
a
gonna have a plaque right
They're
on
gonna have
one of the
plaque.
posts of the.
Absolutely, they will.
Thank
And
Absolutely.
if they made a big enough donation, it has a leaf on it. And if it was a smaller donation and just a plaque, we did that too. So, because those leaves are like $500 a piece.
I didn't know that.
No, you do.
So how does, April, so how would you go about, like, because obviously somebody could give you $250,000, $250,000, $350,000 for
I
these
mean, if they're
three
close
big
enough,
items.
can't you just bring it to the board if they're close enough?
No, I'm talking about is to elicit.
Oh,
I mean, we're not waiting for them to come, right? You're
I
gonna
would either,
go see-
I'd be talking to corporations, businesses, and financial wealth consultants saying, hey, we've got these options. Don't you have customers and clients who might want to do that?
Maybe tours, one on the community. Maybe. We've done smaller sponsorships, which we're right now buying sponsors to really look at.
Cause like the portico thing, I mean, that's like a Home Depot or bigger. In my mind, right?
Yeah, well,
You can aid somebody at that
Yeah.
stature
Yes,
or bigger.
National Corporation.
We actually have one in like,
Yeah.
I was just curious.
I don't think we need to have a list for every possibility.
No, I was just
Okay.
kinda asking how it kinda worked. How you sort them out.
So, can't give away my free tickets.
Well, I'm not going around pounding the doors for them.
Okay, so we have no announcements on the agenda. So that leaves us with one thing.
I make a motion to
Second.
adjourn the meeting of the White Lake Township
Second.
Library Board of Trustees, at 8:39 PM.
Seconded.
Seconded by Eric, all in favor?
All right.
Hi.
All right, 5 yes votes. Get out of here.
Why not?